This video was recorded with the Avermedia Live Gamer Portable. Skip it up and that up! Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Yeah, you're looking at the original Dead Space now. I was gonna do the whole playthrough of Dead Space 2, I still am, but I'm gonna do Dead Space 1 first, then Dead Space 2, then Dead Space 3. 1, 2, 3. I don't know why I started with Dead Space 2 first, so you're going to see me play through the whole game of Dead Space 1. You're going to see incremental parts with each news video. Then I'll go on to Dead Space 2, so you're going to see me replay Dead Space 2 again, so a couple parts of it are going to be footage you've already seen, and then I'm going to go on to Dead Space 3. So if you're wondering why in the future, like, wait, Rich is playing Dead Space 2, I've seen this footage already, it's because I want to do it in order, because I'm anal and it makes sense. So now you know. Anyway, moving on to today's news story, or this video's news story, I should say. So Mike Cerny says that the PS4 is as developer-friendly as the original PlayStation. He made this claim during a keynote address at the Game Lab Expo in Barcelona. He explained this using the term time to triangle. That's a phrase which essentially means how long it takes for coders to create usable graphics with console hardware. And he had this diagram up on the screen. I may take the JPEG and put it in this video. If not, I'm going to say it anyway. The original PlayStation's time to triangle was 1 to 2 months. The PlayStation 2, which had a chip in it that has had its own custom language, which pissed off developers, was 3 to 6 months. The PlayStation 3, because of how complex it was, even first-party developers were having a tough time with the hardware, and third-party developers, even to this day, struggle with the PlayStation 3, took 6 to 12 months. And the PlayStation 4, because it has a really clean architecture, x86, unified memory, the whole nine, 1 to 2 months, just like the PlayStation 1. Now, it was funny, in the article, he recalls talking to Ken Kutaragi, and he was saying, hey, you know, in 2004, this was, I should say, you know, talking about the time to triangle with Ken Kutaragi, and this is what Ken had to say. He was like, triangles, schmiangles, who cares about how long it takes? Just, you know, make the most complex hardware possible so you have a lot of potential in the future. Yeah, that didn't work out too well for them with the PS3, did it? I mean, in the end, the system did very well, but it was expensive as hell in the beginning, and developers had a tough-ass time with it, so yeah, the PS3 architecture, at least is what Cerny says in this article, was a mistake. And yeah, there were some gorgeous first-party games, but in the end, they would have done a lot better if they had an easier-to-approach system than the PlayStation 3 was. Also, in 2008, this is interesting, I almost forgot to mention this when making this video. Cerny made a questionnaire and sent it to third-party developers, you know, everywhere, and asked them what was the biggest feature they wanted in next-gen hardware. And the biggest thing they wanted was a unified memory architecture. No more separate banks of memory, one for the central processor, one for the graphics processor. It makes things harder. They wanted a unified memory architecture. It makes it easier for them to code. And that's why the PlayStation 4 has a huge 8GB GDDR5 memory pool that both the CPU and GPU pull from. Now, like the Xbox One has done, they were also tempted to add EDRAM to the graphics processor, but they wanted to make the system, the PS4, as straightforward as possible, so they opted against it. So it's as easy to code for as humanly possible, according to Cerny. Look, man, with development costs for games skyrocketing, the days of consoles having super foreign, exotic architecture that, you know, it'll take years to unleash the power of game console XYZ, it's over. You know, the systems have to be easy. The games are going to cost enough to make as it is, and the systems need to be as easy to develop for as possible. Also, too, you have to realize Sony had a different game plan back in the day. Now, they all but directly admitted that, yes, the cell architecture they thought was uber powerful and it was going to do some awesome things, but they wanted it to be tough to develop for. They wanted it to be a challenge to make games for it. You want to know why? Because they thought the PS3, like the PS2, was going to be the lead platform. And if it took a lot of resources for a third-party developer to make a game for the PS3, they couldn't allocate as many resources to the Xbox 360 and the Wii they were hoping for. They were hoping that the PS3 was going to be the lead platform. It would suck all the finances out of whatever third-party developer was making a game for the PS3 dry, and then they would have nothing nothing left over to develop for other platforms. Yeah, because the 360 ended up being the lead platform, it kind of bit him in the ass. Now, as much as I think Sony made all the right moves with designing the PS4 with the x86 architecture, unified memory that both the CPU and GPU pull from, easy for developers to approach, they did everything right. But you know what's kind of sad, and Mark from Classic Game Room said this too, is that we're never going to have consoles that have that unique feeling again. You understand what I'm saying? Like, when you put in, back in the day, when you had a PlayStation 1, an N64, a Sega Saturn, all the games felt different. They all had their different feel to them. Like, when you put a Saturn game in, it felt like a Saturn game. When you put an N64 game in, for better or worse, it felt like an N64 game. And, you know, when you put a PlayStation game in, you knew you were playing a PlayStation game, even if, like, there was, like, all three systems hidden in a magical box, and, you know, you had a generic controller that you couldn't tell what brand it was on. As soon as you looked at the TV, you knew what console it was coming from. And those days are kind of all but gone. I mean, maybe we'll have a little bit with the Wii U still, where, you know, it has its own unique flair to it, but it's kind of sad to see it go, man. It's kind of sad that you're not going to have all, you know, like this totally proprietary hardware where it's going to be, you know, totally foreign and unique. And yeah, I understand it needs to go away to cut costs, but, you know, it's just kind of like, you know, an era of gaming is kind of dying and things are changing once again. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but maybe if you grew up in the time I did with gaming, then maybe you would understand it more. Anyway, folks, I'm done preaching on this video. Make sure to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And if you have an interesting news story you would like me to discuss, private message me with a link via YouTube. And if I use your news article, I will give you a shout out in the video and feature your YouTube channel in the description. Have a good one.